Picture the scene. It's a vast, just a totally scorched landscape. The heat is shimmering off the ground. It's dead silent, and there's absolutely nowhere to hide.
Right.
And in the middle of this emptiness stands a single figure. But here's the kicker. He isn't alone.
Yeah.
He is surrounded, like literally encircled by wild beasts. It sounds like the opening scene of, I don't know, a survival thriller.
Oh, definitely.
Or maybe some high-stakes nature documentary where things are about to go very wrong.
It paints a really vivid picture. It feels dangerous, visceral, and honestly, it feels like a place you would do anything to avoid.
Exactly. I would
Yeah.
run the other way. But here's the thing. This isn't a movie script. It's a scene from the Gospel of Mark, specifically Mark chapter 1, verses 12 and 13.
Right, describing Jesus in the wilderness.
Yes. And today we are doing a deep dive into a really fascinating text titled Encountering Demons and Angels Within. And it takes this ancient, dusty scene and just completely flips it on its head.
It really does. Because it moves the camera from the external landscape, the sand and the heat, to the internal landscape.
The geography of the human mind.
Exactly.
Right. The source material suggests that this whole scenario, the wilderness, the wild beasts, the angels, it isn't just history. It's a roadmap.
A psychological and spiritual roadmap for how we handle our own internal struggles.
And since we are currently in the season of Lent, this feels incredibly timely. But I want to be clear to you listening, even if you aren't observing Lent, even if you're just someone trying to navigate a stressful week at work, this concept of the wilderness is going to hit home.
It definitely hits home because what we're looking at here draws on the wisdom of the Desert Fathers and the writing of Anselm Grün. And the core argument is that the wildness isn't actually out there.
It's in here,
Right.
inside us.
Okay, before we get too deep into the internal stuff, I'm going to just pause on those names you just dropped because we hear Desert Fathers and Anselm Grün, and for some people that might sound a bit academic.
Or obscure. So can we ground that a little? Who are we actually listening to here?
That's a really fair question. When we talk about the Desert Fathers, we aren't talking about guys in ivory towers writing textbooks.
Right.
We are talking about radical experimenters in the 3rd and 4th centuries. These were men and women who literally walked away from society, from the noise, the politics, the comfort,
Just left it all.
left it all to live in caves and huts in the Egyptian desert.
So they were basically the original minimalists.
Extreme minimalists. But more importantly, they were essentially the first experimental psychologists.
Oh, I like that way of framing it.
Yeah, because they didn't have MRIs or data sets, but they had silence. They isolated themselves to study the human mind under pressure.
Wow.
They wanted to see what happens when you strip away every single distraction. And Anselm Grün, who is a modern Benedictine monk, takes that ancient, gritty wisdom and bridges it with modern psychology, specifically Jungian psychology.
So we're looking at a blend of ancient mysticism and modern psychological insight.
Exactly. It's a study of the human condition when the Wi-Fi goes out, metaphorically speaking.
Right. When you can't just scroll away your feelings.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack the scene itself then. Because when I think of the word wilderness, I usually think of getting lost. Taking a wrong turn, running out of gas, being somewhere you definitely do not want to be.
Yeah, it implies a mistake.
But the source points out something really specific about how Jesus got there.
Yes, and this is a detail that is so easy to miss if you're reading too fast. The text highlights that the Spirit drove Jesus out into the wilderness.
Drove him out. That's a strong verb.
It is. It wasn't a gentle suggestion.
Like, hey, maybe go take a retreat.
Right, no, and it certainly wasn't an accident. The Spirit initiated this movement.
Yeah, that feels counterintuitive, though. I feel like we often view difficult seasons in our lives, our own personal wildernesses, as signs that we messed up somehow.
Oh, constantly.
Like, I'm in this dry, lonely place, my career is stalled, or I feel empty, so I must have done something to deserve this. We treat it like a punishment.
Precisely. We interpret the wilderness as a penalty box. We think if I was doing life right, I'd be in a garden, not a desert.
Yeah, exactly.
But our source material is very clear on this. It explicitly calls the desert an initiation.
An initiation, wow, that changes the vibe completely.
It frames it as a necessary threshold. The text defines the wilderness as the place where illusions fall away and truth surfaces. Think about that.
Illusions falling away.
Yeah, because in our normal, busy lives, we're buffered by illusions.
What kind of illusions are we talking about?
Well, the illusion that we are in total control. The illusion that our status or our job title defines us.
That was a big one.
Or the illusion that if we just keep moving fast enough, we won't have to feel anything unpleasant. We use comfort and noise as a shield.
So we can pretend we're fine. We can pretend we have it all together as long as the calendar is full.
Right. But the wilderness strips all of that away. It is the place where avoidance ends.
Because there's nothing to avoid it with.
Exactly. You can't distract yourself with Netflix or a busy work schedule in the desert. You are just there with the truth.
That is terrifying, honestly.
It should be. That's why we avoid it.
But the source mentions that this is where real transformation happens. It reminds me of that saying, growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. But this feels way more aggressive than just stepping out of a comfort zone.
It is more aggressive. The text says transformation happens at the edge. And being driven into the wilderness is about being pushed to that edge where you have to confront reality. And that is where we meet the beasts.
Okay, let's talk about the beasts. Because in the literal text of Mark, we might be imagining lions, bears, wolves, pure survival mode.
Right.
But Anselm Grün takes a very different angle on this.
Yes. This is where the psychology kicks in. Grün suggests that when the text talks about wild beasts, it's using a metaphor for our internal reality.
So not literal lions.
Not in this context, no. The demons or beasts are identified as the raw energies within us. The source lists them out explicitly.
What's the list?
Fear, anger, craving, shame.
Oh, wow. Those are definitely beasts I've encountered.
Most of us have.
But help me understand the term raw energies. Because usually if I feel anger or shame, I don't think of it as energy. I think of it as something bad, like a defect I need to get rid of.
And that is exactly where the desert fathers, and modern psychology for that matter, would say we get it wrong. We tend to moralize these emotions immediately.
Like anger is bad.
Right. Anger is bad. Craving is a weakness. But Grün calls them raw energies because at their core, they are just fuel.
Just fuel. Give me an example of that.
Yeah.
How is anger just fuel?
Well, think about what anger actually is physiologically. It's a surge of adrenaline. It's a mobilizing force.
Okay, yeah.
If you strip away the beast aspect, the yelling, the violence, the destruction, what is left underneath that?
I'm not sure.
It's a drive for justice. It's the energy to change something that is wrong. It is passion.
Oh, I see. So the beast isn't the emotion itself, but the untamed destructive version of it.
Exactly. It's the energy running wild without direction. The same goes for craving. At its core, craving is just a desire for connection, for life, for fullness.
Which is a good thing.
It is. It only becomes a beast when it gets hooked on the wrong things. Addiction, obsession, rampant consumption.
That is a really helpful distinction because if I look at my anger as a literal beast that wants to eat me, I'm going to be terrified of it. I'm going to run. But if I look at it as raw energy that is just currently misdirected, that feels manageable.
It changes the entire relationship. You stop trying to kill the beast and you start trying to understand it.
But that brings us to the problem of actually facing them. The source explicitly connects this beast concept to the season of Lent. But honestly, let's broaden that. It connects to any time we try to slow down.
Oh, absolutely. It perfectly explains why slowing down is so incredibly difficult for most of us.
Yeah, let's talk about that mechanism because theoretically, quiet time sounds lovely. You see it on social media, the coffee cup, the open journal, the sunrise.
It looks so peaceful.
It looks amazing. But what actually happens when you sit down and turn off your phone?
Well, what happens for you?
Usually.
Yeah.
My brain goes completely haywire. I remember every embarrassing thing I did in high school.
Yeah.
I get angry about an email I received 3 days ago. I suddenly feel incredibly lonely. It's chaos.
Exactly. And the source addresses this directly. It says, when we fast, simplify, or spend quiet time in prayer, our inner beasts often wake up.
They wake up. That is such a vivid image. It implies they were sleeping before.
Or at least they were sedated. As long as you are feeding them with noise, food, scrolling, and busyness, they are sort of just dozing in the corner. You're keeping them distracted.
Or giving an iPad to a toddler.
Exactly like that. But the minute you get quiet, you take the iPad away.
And they start roaring.
The text lists specific examples of what wakes up. Old resentments, loneliness, compulsions, the urge to control.
Oh, man, the urge to control.
Yeah.
That is a big one.
It really is.
When you strip away the distractions, you realize how much you are gripping the steering wheel of your life. Terrified that if you let go for even a second, the car is going to flip.
And here's the crucial insight from the source. And this is something I think every single listener needs to hear, whether you're religious or not.
Lay it on us.
When that happens, when you try to be quiet and suddenly you are flooded with anger or loneliness,
Yeah,
our instant instinct is to think we failed.
totally. I think, well, I'm bad at meditating, or I'm doing Lent wrong.
Right.
I'm clearly not a spiritual person
Yeah.
because I'm sitting here seething with rage instead of feeling all zen and peaceful.
Right. We think, I was supposed to feel peace, but I feel chaos. I must be doing it wrong. But the source says, no, this is not failure. It is the beginning of deeper work.
So the chaos is actually a sign that you are doing it right.
Yes. You have successfully entered the wilderness. You have woken up the beasts. Think about a glass of muddy water.
Okay.
If you keep stirring it, which is our busy lives, it just looks universally brown. But if you let it sit still, the mud settles to the bottom and becomes visible. You are seeing the mud because you stopped stirring.
That is, well, it's validating, but it's also incredibly uncomfortable. It reframes the struggle completely. It's not a malfunction, it's the process.
Exactly.
But okay, once the beasts are awake, then what? I'm standing in my internal desert, and I'm staring down a massive lion called resentment. What do I actually do? The source warns us about the wrong way to handle this, right?
It does. It explicitly warns against hating ourselves or forcing change.
Which is usually my go-to strategy.
Most people's strategy.
I'm like, stop being resentful. What is wrong with you? Be better. I try to bully myself into peace.
Exactly. We try to beat the beast into submission with shame or with sheer willpower. But the Desert Fathers found out the hard way. Violence against ourselves doesn't work.
It just makes it worse.
The more you fight the beast, the stronger it gets.
So if we don't fight and we don't run, what is the third option?
The method of the monks involves three things: staying present, naming what is there, and letting Christ stand with us in it.
Let's break those down because they sound simple, but I bet they aren't. Staying present. That sounds like mindfulness 101, but in this context, it feels much higher stakes.
It is higher stakes. It means don't run away, don't go back to the distraction, don't pick up your phone. Just stand there in the discomfort. Feel the heat of the anger without actually acting on it.
Just endure the heat.
Yeah.
And then naming it. Now, help me with the mechanism here. Why does simply saying this is anger or this is shame actually do anything? It feels a little too simple to be effective.
It feels simple, but it is neurologically profound.
Really?
Yeah. When you are overwhelmed by an emotion, your amygdala, the fight or flight center, is running the show. You are the anger.
Right.
But when you label it, when you actively say, I am feeling anger, you engage the prefrontal cortex. You engage the observer part of your brain.
Oh, I see. So you create a little bit of distance.
Exactly. You separate the I from the beast. You are no longer the beast. You are the one watching the beast. It's the difference between being inside a storm and watching a storm through a sturdy window.
Okay, I can definitely see that. That's the psychological component. But then there's the spiritual component mentioned in the text. The third step, letting Christ stand with us in it.
This connects right back to the scripture we started with, Mark chapter 1, verse 13. Jesus is in the wilderness with the wild beasts.
Right. He's not fighting them.
He isn't killing them. He isn't running from them. He is with them. The source says the desert is where we allow God's light to fall on what we usually hide.
So it's about exposure, not destruction.
It's about integration. It's about saying, God, here is my anger. It's ugly, it's loud, and frankly, I'm scared of it. But I'm not going to pretend it's not here anymore. I'm standing next to it, and I'm asking you to stand here with me.
That feels incredibly vulnerable. It's basically inviting the divine into the basement of your psyche where you keep all the junk.
It is deeply vulnerable. But it's also the only way to heal. If you keep the beast in the dark, it stays a monster. If you bring it into the light, it becomes something else.
Now, this brings us to the part of the deep dive that I think is the most radical. Because we haven't talked about the other figures in the desert yet.
Right.
Because the text doesn't just say Jesus was with the beasts. It adds something else entirely.
And angels ministered to him.
The angels.
Yeah.
Now, I have to admit, in my head, I usually picture this as a sequence, like a timeline.
First one, then the other?
Exactly. First, the scary beasts. Then I fight them off or wait them out. And then, once the beasts are gone and the dust finally settles, the angels show up to give me a snack and a pat on the back.
Yeah.
Like a reward for a job well done.
That is how we almost always read it, chronologically. We think we have to defeat our demons to earn the angels.
Right.
But the expert in our source text highlights a crucial detail. The wild beasts and the angels surround Jesus at the exact same time.
At the same time. So they're roommates.
Yeah. They coexist. The darkness and the light are present in the exact same space. The Source describes our own deserts as a mix of danger and hidden help.
That is a very powerful twist.
Hmm.
That means you aren't just sitting there with your demons. There's help right there in the cage with you.
Exactly. We are not going into the darkness alone. This changes the entire emotional landscape.
Yeah?
It means that when you're feeling that intense loneliness or that raw energy of anger, you are simultaneously being ministered to, even if you can't feel it quite yet.
Let's stay on this for a second because it's hard to wrap your head around. It's easy to feel the beast. Shame is loud. Anger is loud.
Very loud.
But the angel feels quiet. How do we make sense of that simultaneous presence?
Think of it like this. Imagine a parent with a toddler who is having a massive meltdown, screaming, kicking, face red.
Okay.
That is the beast. Now, the parent isn't screaming back. They aren't leaving the room. They're just sitting there, holding space, maybe gently holding the child. The chaos is there, but the safety is there too.
So the presence of the parent doesn't instantly stop the screaming.
No, but it changes the fundamental nature of the experience. Screaming alone in a void is trauma. Screaming in the presence of love is processing.
Wow. That distinction is huge. Screaming in the presence of love.
That is what the Source implies. The angels represent that divine presence that doesn't flee when we get ugly.
The Source uses a really beautiful phrase to describe this meeting. It says, our untamed parts are met. How did it put it?
Not with contempt, but with a fierce, liberating mercy.
Fierce, liberating mercy. I really love that combination of words. Because fierce isn't a word we usually associate with mercy. We usually think of mercy as soft, maybe even a little pushover-ish.
Right, but in the wilderness, mercy has to be fierce. Soft mercy would look at your demons and say, oh, it's okay, you don't really mean it.
Which is enabling.
Exactly. Fierce mercy looks at the demon and says, I see you, I know exactly what you are, and I love the human behind you anyway.
It stands its ground.
It has to. It has to be strong enough to stand next to the wild beast and not flinch. It has to be strong enough to look at your deepest shame, the thing you think makes you completely unlovable, and say, you are loved, right here, right now.
Not you'll be loved when you fix this.
No, loved in it. That is the liberation. The liberation comes from realizing that God's presence isn't dependent on you killing your beasts first.
That really brings home the core message of the text. Transformation begins where avoidance ends.
That's the bottom line. As long as we avoid the wilderness, as long as we avoid the silence, we stay stuck in the illusion. We stay comfortable, sure, but we stay small. We stay controlled by the very things we refuse to look at.
But when we step into that initiation,
When we step in, we wake the beasts. We face the raw energy. It's messy and it's loud. But because we are there, present and open, we also encounter the angels. We encounter that fierce mercy. And that is how we actually grow. We don't grow by cutting off parts of ourselves. We grow by integrating them under that light.
So, to recap our journey today, because we've covered a lot of ground, from ancient Egypt to modern neuroscience, we started with the idea that the wilderness isn't a punishment, but an initiation, a place the Spirit leads us to be stripped of our illusions.
Right. It's the necessary reset button where we can no longer hide.
And in that place, we encounter the beasts, which aren't monsters under the bed, but our own internal struggles, fear, anger, shame, the raw energies that we usually try to numb or hide.
And especially during seasons like Lent, or any time we try to get quiet, those beasts wake up. But instead of panicking or hating ourselves, the strategy is to stand still, to name them, to engage that observer self, and to let the light in.
And ultimately, to realize that in that very same moment, angels are ministering to us. The struggle and the grace are happening simultaneously. The parent is sitting with the screaming child.
It's a profound shift in how to view our own psychology. It takes the fear out of our feelings. It turns our inner life from haunted house into a sacred space, a space of true encounter.
Transformation begins where avoidance ends. That is definitely going to stick with me the next time I feel the urge to pick up my phone just to avoid feeling bored or anxious for 5 minutes.
It's a practice. It's the practice of the desert. And it's hard. But the promise of the text is that you don't do it alone.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought to mull over. We've talked about the beasts and the angels being there at the same time. We usually run from the beast, hoping to find the angel. But here's a question. If they are side by side, is it possible that the beast you are running from right now is actually the very thing that will introduce you to the angel you need?
That's a really powerful thought. Maybe the beast is the gatekeeper to the mercy?
What would happen if, instead of running, you just stopped, turned around, and introduced yourself to the beast? You might be surprised by who is standing right next to it. Thanks for taking the plunge with us on this deep dive.
See you next time.